All right, welcome back, everybody. Our next guest is out with his annual Top 10 Trends piece highlighting financial predictions for 2025. Want to welcome Ruchir Sharma. He is the chairman of Rockefeller International. And Ruchir, I want to run through this because you've got a really interesting list. Your first two items on this list for your top trends are, number one, the return of the contrarians, and number two, momentum crashes. Do you think that overall the markets are going to be faced with a lot of trouble this year?
Well, I think that if I can start off by saying this, Becky, which is that in my 30 years of investing, and I've been coming out with this annual list practically for most of those 30 years, I've never seen such strong groupthink prevail, which is that at the start of this year, it's almost everyone seems to have the same view, which is that the American stock market will keep outperforming, the US dollar will keep rising, and the AI trend and mania will continue with the big tech companies benefiting. And this is really a bit contradictory to the fact that we have elected to office someone who's supposed to be the biggest disruptor. And instead, what we are predicting here, or at least the groupthink is predicting, is that the trends which we saw under Joe Biden and really over the past 10 to 15 years will continue undeterred. So I think I take issue with that. And I say here that I feel that the US market in particular is possibly set to underperform in 2025. That really, I think, is my big call for 2025. The valuation gap has never been this wide. The sentiment differential between US and the rest of the world has never been this wide. And I think the situation is unsustainable, where the US economy is less than 30% of the global economy, but the US stock market's weight now in the global MSCI index is approaching 70%. And as that old line goes, if something can't go on forever, it won't. So that really, for me, is the big central call of 2025. And what the trigger for that could be, there are many triggers I point out, but a leading trigger could be that the attention could finally turn to America's yawning fiscal gap, because there is no sign that that's going to retrench.
Let's focus on that. We're almost out of time, and I'm very sorry, Ruchir, because this is a fascinating list. But I think that's the one that really jumps out at me next, too, this idea of punishing deficits. We've had them for a long time, but you think the markets might actually sit up and take notice now?
Yeah, that's because across the world that trend is coming, right? Which is that we've seen the markets take notice of that in places from Brazil to UK, now of France. The UK has been given a hard time with that, but the US has been given a free pass because it's got the world's reserve currency and the sort of attitude that, listen, people have been warning about this rising deficit for years, if not decades, so why worry about it now? But the US has never run a deficit which is such an outlier. There's no country in the world today running a deficit number like the US is running, and that has been artificially propping up growth. And I think there is a sign now, or an increasing sign, that the bond market is beginning to take notice. And I suspect as this year goes on and the Treasury tries to sell more paper on the longer end of the curve, that will begin to really prick markets. So I think that, yes, that is something which could be a leading trigger. But the big call still is that I'd be shocked if the groupthink is so right as it is now, with its strong conviction of U.S. outperformance.
Ruchir, thank you. Squawk Box will be right back.